Welcome. Oh, got it. Welcome.
Okay.
Welcome, everyone, to this webinar for Sowing Hope for the Planet. We are so happy to have all of you here with us. The theme for today is sustainability in the spirit of integral ecology, personal, communal, cultural, economic, and looking in terms of the conversion that we need to have for today. I'm going to stop just a minute because there's some technical difficulty with the PowerPoint. Okay, so you can see by this PowerPoint that Laudato Si is really the way that we are connecting all of these areas. And it is with the spirit of Laudato Si that we are thinking about and creating and listening to one another to find a way to come to a deeper conversion in a communal and a personal way. For the schedule of today, there's some areas that we really want to explore in a deeper way. And as we go on, you will see how much thought and practicality has been put into the program that you will be a part of today. There will be some sharing in terms of the campaign updates. There'll be the 2020 plans of the Dicastery for Promoting Integral Human Development with Father Jostrom. There'll be some sharing regarding the carbon footprint and other sustainable activities through the testimonies of the Sisters of the Holy Cross and the sustainable efforts being planned through the Global Catholic Climate Movement with Laura Linger-King. So before we go on any further, I would like to ask Father Armando Picardel, a Redemptionist priest from the Philippines, who is our new executive co-secretary of the JPIC Commission, that's Justice, Peace, and Integrity of Creation Commission, for both men and women religious congregations, USG and UISG. He is coming with a lot of experience in areas related to justice and peace, and we're very, very fortunate to have him open our presentation with the prayer. So, Father Armando, please lead us forth.
O God, our Creator, our world is facing a crisis that threatens to destroy our planet and all living creatures. A crisis that affects the future of humanity. Our forests are disappearing, our oceans are heating up, superstorms are becoming more frequent, the lakes are drying up. The world is getting warmer. The glaciers are melting fast. The sea levels are rising. The climate is changing. We are facing an emergency and time is running out. O God, our Creator, your creation is being destroyed. Our common home is threatened. O Lord, wake us up. You have given us a responsibility to care for the earth and defend the integrity of creation. Make us aware of this urgent situation and our responsibility to respond effectively to this emergency before it is too late. May we heed the call to ecological conversion as individuals and as communities. Open our minds and hearts We become more aware of the interconnectedness of all things and beings. So whatever we do will have an effect on our planet. Help us overcome the consumerist mentality that contributes to ecological crisis. Give us the courage to act and adopt a more sustainable lifestyle. Full of hope, we ask you, hear our prayers. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Father Armando. You've put us really in a receptive place. You have awakened us up to begin to look at, explore some of the areas that we can look at in terms of really having a sustainable lifestyle. And we really are asking for the courage to act in ways that are necessary for us to listen to the response of the cry of the earth and the cry of the poor. And that's what we hope to do in terms of the campaign, Sowing Hope for the Planet. And we'll be looking at some of the goals for this campaign, looking at an introductory PowerPoint that's being prepared, how we are resourcing the organization of the campaign, and the work with the constellations. So for the goals. So these are guiding goals that have been pervasive throughout the development of the campaign. So the purpose is to create a coordinated effort of the members of UISG and any of their contacts and any other organizations that would want to be a part of this in connection with the sisters, and also with the male religious who are considering and are joining this effort in some ways. To provide resources for the study of Laudato Si, and to partner with other like-minded organizations that are working on care of the planet. Because this is a collaborative effort with the Global Catholic Climate Movement and other organizations who have joined them in this effort of dealing with the celebration and the challenge of Laudato Si. And some of the evolving goals as we go forward, we begin to assess what it is that we're doing and how can we do it better. So we're looking at opportunities that can effectively meet the cry of the earth and the cry of the poor. We have organized contacts into the constellations so that we have a smaller basis out of which we are organizing our efforts. We have documented the work being done in the constellations as we look at the research for the needs of the earth and of the poor. These are outside credible resources for information. And that we've developed a theme system in which we can share the resources that so many of you have contributed to this effort, this campaign. So to help bring people aboard when we have already been active with this campaign since 2018 is an introductory PowerPoint. And in the PowerPoint, there will be dealing with the conception, how did this all get started, how it has been growing, and where we see ourselves in the future. So an evolution and a progress. Again, in the 6 languages that our website is in. And the purpose of Sowing Hope for the Planet, which we are really being charged to do, is to provide opportunities for members of congregations and their connections to make a difference in our care of the planet. So it's about networking, making bonding, making our footprint, our work that we're doing more noticeable. And that's what we are about, being at this together. And you see up here the logo from the UISG, the Global Catholic Climate Movement, and then from the Justice and Peace Integrity of Creation Office as well. So the resource organization that we've undertaken, again, it's an effort to collect and connect with all of the countries and the places that we are around the globe. And to do this, we've taken the multiple languages and the resource options that people have contributed through our website. And we've made some multiple tags so that you can now use the resources in the way that you would like to do so. So this is the new page that will be operative with all of the resources in about a week. But what you will see is the languages, the different categories, the different places where these resources can take place. And so you can begin to plug in different things. Like, for example, I will go to English. And it worked before. Here it goes. And this will take you to the home page of the Sowing Hope for the Planet. And as you see up here, there are the 6 languages listed. I am in the English one at this point. I will go here. I will take off the Spanish for right now. Those that are highlighted are the ones that can be operative for what I would like to show you. So I can say English, show me resources in different congregations about Laudato Si. And I say below, search for those. And what will happen is that will show up all the resources that are available in that language, in the areas that I chose to show with you. Now suppose I would go to Espanol. So the change is to Spanish. And again, I would say I have to go to Spanish. Use congregations, Laudato Si, maybe sustainability may be an area that I'd like to look at. And I would choose that. And this is something on the Amazon area. Now there are less resources because they're not being shared. So the more we are able to upload, because you have given these to the website, the more we are able to share with one another. Suppose I would also like to say, show me this in English. Moving it down, I would say search, and you would find more information. So again, this is our effort of working together, but it's a new way for you to resource the information that you need to carry forward. And that's a new development that's there on the languages that the information was given to us. So it's exciting. I think it's a really exciting opportunity for people to use. So with the constellations then, the next effort was trying to find a way to organize ourselves around the globe. And with the different constellations, there was an effort to come forth with a commitment. This was made at the last plenary for the gathering of the religious superiors, in which the different constellations met and determined some commitments. Here you see the commitment for the area of Africa, East Africa. And in that, as you can see, the different countries that are listed here, it's Sudan, South Sudan, Uganda, Kenya, and Tanzania. So they're in one constellation. And looking at the needs of the country, the cry of the earth, there's soil erosion, there's droughts, and all the results that accompany those kinds of conditions. The cry of the poor is you begin to see listed human trafficking and children being used in labor. There are many other, and the list is longer, but for purposes of the webinar, we just chose a few of these areas. But to show then the commitment made by the sisters in those countries relate to the conditions of their countries specifically. So tree planting, encouraging that in the schools and the institutions, different kind of cooking methods. Looking into the whole idea of protecting the young people, looking at what's happening with group housemaids and workers, young people, and how are they being involved in work outside of their country or in their country. And then in this process involving other stakeholders, protection officers and police and other NGOs. And this is a reality. They are doing this. So it's a way of measuring the impact of the work of the sisters and those who are with them to make a difference in their country by targeting those areas that really are important for them. Okay. It's a lot of work, but there is many sheets behind this. But we have to be systematic if we want to make change. And you can see by what I'm showing you, the interest is there and the willingness is to make a difference. So now for the second part of the program, which you are privileged to have some speakers. As we mentioned, from the dicastery, representative from the Sisters of the Holy Cross, and the Global Catholic Climate Movement. So this is what we are going to be hearing in the next hour or next 45 minutes or so. So our first speaker here will be Father Joshua Kirtayithadam. He is a coordinator of the sector of ecology and creation within the dicastery for promoting integral human development. He is the chair of the philosophy of science and director of the Institute of Social and Political Sciences at the Salesian Pontifical University. He is a Salesian. And he's a noted author, and he's written some compelling books regarding the climate crisis, creation crisis. And his book, The 10 Green Commandments of Laudato Si, is a popular companion for readers of Laudato Si. So with this introduction, I am very happy to give to you for the next few 20 minutes, Father Josh, to lead us then into more exploring of the 2020 plans for the dicastery for the promotion of integral human development. Father Joshua.
Good afternoon to everyone, and on behalf of the dicastery for promoting integral human development, I would like to congratulate Sister Sheila Kinsey and her team, and thank you for this kind invitation and for this beautiful initiative that's being organized today. For my presentation, I thought of choosing this title, Laudato Si in Action. Now, Laudato Si came out in 2015, nearly 5 years, and now it's time to put Laudato Si into action. And the subtitle is from unsustainability to ecological conversion in the spirit of integral ecology. Now, my presentation will be centered on Laudato Si, this beautiful encyclical that Pope Francis gifted to the Church, and not just to the Church, but to the entire world, we might say. And it is the subtitle of the encyclical is so charming. It's about care for our common home. It's important that we always maintain this contemplative view of the earth. Earth is beautiful and it is our common home. Now, my presentation will be divided into two parts. First of all, the context. What is happening to our common home, what Laudato Si describes as the cry of the earth and the cry of the poor. Just put it very simply, directly, it is a very unsustainable situation. And some time ago, I happened to, just by chance, look for the definition of the word unsustainable in the Merriam-Webster dictionary. And the description is, unsustainable means not capable of being prolonged or continued. We cannot carry on. And probably I thought the people who have really understood this are our children. They're telling us we cannot go on like this. So we are in a very unsustainable situation. The cry of the earth, as Pope Francis points out in Laudato Si, we need or we take a frank look at the facts to see that our common home is falling into serious disrepair. Just a few slides. This is a very famous study. Most of you might be familiar with this, the planetary boundaries of 2009, in which, at least in 3 areas, we have gone beyond the green zone, the area of safety, climate change, climate crisis, we call it, in the language of Pope Francis, or climate emergency, the nitrogen cycle due to modern agriculture, and look at the rate of biodiversity loss. So we are in a very, very difficult terrain. And to come to climate crisis, now these were the estimates, the forecast of the IPCC, Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change in 2007, saying that our planet, our common home, could look like this in 2020, in this decade that we have just begun, and by the end of the century. 3 forecasts. The first one is the most optimistic one, and the second one is the medium, and the third one is the worst scenario. Now we have come to it in 15 years' time. Now, these days we are all weeping with Australia, and this was forecast by the scientists. And what's concerning, I'll come to later, is that reality is catching up much faster than probably what we thought. So this is how Australia is right now, and the wildfires breaking out all over Australia, 6,000 buildings, of which nearly 3,000 homes, nearly 29 people, and over 1 billion animals dead. And the wildfires are raging even as we speak this afternoon. So it is worrying, and imagine having to live with this situation for weeks and weeks. So reality is catching up, and climate crisis is not something there that could happen. It is happening. And this is a point I want to stress. What the scientific community is worried is that once we go beyond tipping points, you just cannot come back. We have the situation of the climate crisis, but also maybe I can just call your attention to a few of these tipping. There are so many of them. It's like, for example, the Arctic. Now, again, I said it some time ago that reality is catching up faster than our estimates. Now, some years ago, we knew that Greenland would melt. Now, a few months ago, a report came out saying that the Greenland is melting 4 times faster than what we expected. And Greenland alone can raise sea levels by 1 meter by the end of the century. And what I want to say is Greenland can raise sea levels by 7 meters if the entire Greenland were to melt. And by the end of the century, also due to other glaciers and the oceans warming up, we are going to reach 1 meter. And by 2300, we will reach, at this rate, 5.5 meters of sea level rise. So this is what worries the scientists. Once we go beyond tipping points, we cannot come back. And with the climate crisis, it's a 1.5 degrees centigrade. And we are so close to it. We'll come back to it. Other tipping point would be the Amazon, the rainforest. We have reached 25% of deforestation. They say if we reach 40%, and some say even another 5%, the entire Amazon can die out. I remember Professor Sheldon Huber speaking at the Synod, saying that another 5% and the entire Amazon can die out. Or the West African monsoon, the Indian monsoon, summer monsoon, the permafrost in Siberia. So we are in a very, very critical situation, very unsustainable. And the other side of the question, it's not just the cry of the earth, it is equally the cry of the poor. Both everyday experience and scientific research show that the gravest effects of all attacks on the environment are suffered by the poorest. And as we know, they have not contributed to creating the climate crisis or this very unsustainable situation that we have created. Just a few slides, droughts, for example, and farmers around the world. I know in areas where farmers are committing suicide because the debts run up and they are not able to pay them back. Or the floods, this is Bangladesh, where sea level is already rising, and when floods come, houses remain underwater for nearly 3 to 4 months. Imagine living in those. Imagine living in a house like this. I mean, where it can cause disease, especially for children and elderly people. So it's not just our common home which is crumbling around. It is also the homes of so many of our brothers and sisters around the world. And migration, climate refugees, environmental migrants, there are going to be millions and millions. So these are huge challenges, and the poor bearing the brunt. And the last point I want to make here is urgency to act, responding to the cry of the earth and the cry of the poor. And what we mentioned, just to put things in perspective, from 1850, Earth's average temperature has risen by 1.1 degrees centigrade. And we are seeing the impacts, the wildfires we mentioned, the droughts, the floods, the hurricanes, all consequences of temperature rise of 1.1 degrees centigrade. Now, scientists are telling us, be careful. If you go beyond 1.5, you will cross tipping points and you cannot come back. Sea level will keep on rising for thousands and thousands of years. So, and we have just 12 years. This was told to us by scientists in 2018. We are in 2020. CO2 emissions should have been falling 5% from 2015 onwards, but they are rising by 1.5% from 2015. So we are just going in the opposite direction. And time is running out. And who is reminding us of this? Our children. This child telling us, don't mess with my future. And it's because if you speak in 10 or 20 years and the 1.5 degree could be reached by 2030, we don't have time. And those very touching words of Pope Francis and Laudato Si, what kind of world do we want to leave to those who come after us, to children who are now growing up? I remember in the month of June when we met with the heads of oil companies at the Vatican, Pope Francis repeating it, and I could see the pain in his eyes when he said, future generations stand to inherit a greatly spoiled world. Our children and grandchildren should not have to pay the cost of our generation's irresponsibility. I beg your pardon, this he added spontaneously, but I would like to emphasize this. They, our children and grandchildren, should not have to pay. It is not right that they should pay the price of our irresponsibility. So that's Pope Francis, reminding us. But then this is the second point the second part of my presentation. So next 10 minutes. 2020. So let's act now. So maybe, and God's Spirit is inviting us, and it's, I suppose, especially religious orders, inviting us to be leaders, to make this 2020, which is the 5th anniversary of Laudato Si. It's also the 50th anniversary of the Earth Day, 20th anniversary of the Earth Charter. So it is a privileged year. It's what we call a super year. And let's make it a kairos, a time of grace, and a jubilee time. What we really wish and hope is from 2020 we begin a jubilee time for the earth. When we can heal the planet, we can restore human relations, especially towards the poor, and we can return to God the Creator. But not just as wishful thinking, in real action, in praxis. And because Pope Francis tells us that interdependence, Laudato Si, integral ecology, everything is interrelated. Interdependence obliges us to think of one world with a common plan. And the same meeting of which I mentioned before, Pope Francis telling us, dear friends, time is running out. Deliberations must go beyond mere exploration of what can be done and concentrate on what needs to be done starting today. We do not have the luxury of waiting for others to step forward or of prioritizing short-term economic benefits. The climate crisis, imagine the word that Pope Francis used, no more climate change. Climate crisis requires our decisive action here and now. And it was so, satisfying to hear him say, and the church is fully committed to playing her part. It's telling the world, we are there, we are going to act, and we need to act. It's a commitment that Pope Francis made. So that's the reason at the dicastery, but in collaboration with the Order of the Union, the Conference of Religious Superiors, and so many other partners, with the GCCM and the SITSE and the Caritas and so many people, over a year we came up with these plans, Laudato Si 2020. Now, we have nearly 30 pages of initiatives, which we can share with you. But we divided them into 5 categories. First of all, initiatives directly spearheaded by the Vatican, like we'll have the 5th anniversary conference in May. There is also, if you noticed, for the 1st of January, we managed to get the theme of ecological conversion into it. It's a work that we began many months ago. Then also in May, the Congregation for Catholic Education is organizing a big conference on Education Alliance. So Vatican is going to do lots of things, the season of creation in 2020. Then second group is initiatives we are organizing with external partners. And this is a beautiful set of initiatives. There's a Laudato Si movie coming out, available for our schools and parishes and for our communities. There's a Laudato Si Living Chapel. Hopefully we will set it up in the Vatican, St. Peter's Square, still a dream. Then the idea is to take it around the world, and the garden will go to the Italian President's Palace, gardens in Rome, to the UN in New York and elsewhere. That's the plan, to get the biodiversity message around the world. There's a Laudato Si multimedia program coming up, and so many initiatives are there. The third is initiatives at the local level, like the season of creation at the local level, a Laudato Si week, and planting Laudato Si parks or gardens around the world. So many of those initiatives. Fourth group is initiatives led by the UN at the international level. I may just pick up 2: the Biodiversity Summit in China in October, and the COP26 in Glasgow, which is going to be so important, so crucial. And the last group is initiatives from 2020 but beyond, for the next decade. That's what I would really like to share with you. We have identified 7 areas, and where we think we can, again, the Jubilee concept of 7 years. We begin a 7-year journey. So being 2020 being the 50th anniversary of the Earth Day, we hope, say, like 50,000 families begin a 7-year journey, beginning with families, or 50 or 500 parishes beginning a 7-year journey, 50 or more, minimum should be 50, but you could have as many as possible, dioceses, schools, universities, then businesses, farms, hospitals, and Durchis and Fundum. The best comes last, religious orders. And we put religious orders purposely last because it's transversal. Religious orders run schools, hospitals, universities. So we can, apart from turning our own religious orders into Laudato Si religious orders, but we can also get into other areas. Allow me to speak on 3 things when we go for this. First of all, what are the parameters, the metrics? And we have put just 7. Most of this were mentioned before, both by Sister Sheila and Father Pix, the cry of the earth. Are we responding to the cry of the earth? Renewable energy, planting trees, all that. The cry of the poor. So we need to make sure that is why sustainability in Laudato Si is much more comprehensive. It's holistic. It's not just energy, but it's beginning with energy, but many other dimensions. The cry of the earth, the cry of the poor, economics that comes into the way we consume, we produce, we invest, all that. That it all gets reflected in simple lifestyle, not just for the religious order or community, the lifestyles of each one of us. Sobriety in the use of resources and being very concrete, like avoiding single-use plastic, a more plant-based diet, and reduce meat consumption. Very concrete things like that. Then fifth dimension is ecological education, that we rethink our educational curricula and we make young people protagonists of ecological action, ecological spirituality, very important, that we pray with the creation, that we develop an ecological catechesis, and in all this, we involve the community and make it a participatory journey. So these are the 7 criteria sort of we are putting. Cry of the earth, cry of the poor, economics, simple lifestyles, education, spirituality, and community participation. Then we will, with the GCCM, we are working out on how to quantify, concretize this. Second thing is when we hope so many religious orders will join, or provinces could join, that we link north and south. So suppose a province in Germany wants to do a 7-year journey, we will ask them, team up with with one of your provinces or any province in Sri Lanka. So you do it together. Diocese of Los Angeles can do their 7-year journey, but along with, say, for example, Dhaka in Bangladesh, or a school in Rome can do it with a school in Malawi, or a hospital in Amsterdam can do it with a hospital in Congo. So imagine like this Laudato Si. And not just geographic, it could be in the same city, from a posh area, you can team up with a school in the slums, like, or in the same country, but linking the center with the peripheries, north and south. And the third thing to keep in mind is that this journey will begin in 2020 with the first group who will begin their 7-year journey, say 50 dioceses, 50 religious provinces, orders, 50 universities, who will begin their 7-year journey. And in 2021, we want another group to join, and the double of the first group, hopefully. So it could be 100 dioceses, 100 religious provinces. And 2022 will be the double of that. And 2023, the double of that. So we might reach the critical mass in 10 years. Now, I say this because sociologists say, in 3 minutes I'm done, sociologists say that to change human behavior, we need a critical mass of 2.5% of humanity. That would be something like 25 million people. So in 2020, 2021, we might get the critical mass. Now, to really effect societal change, we need between 21 and 25% of humanity. That's a huge number. There could be nearly 2 billion people. So we hope that growing exponentially year after year, doubling, we might reach in 10 years this number for a societal change. So that's we need to pray and act. I conclude, and in all this, we'll also be giving awards from beginning from 2020. Again, we thought of 7 areas: Best Laudato Si individual, Best Laudato Si family, educational institution, school, college, or university, faith community, parish, diocese, church, religious order, action initiative, people's movement, economy, business, labor, and communication, academic publication, artistic production, a movie or a video, musical, whatever. So from 2020, we'll begin, and hopefully the awards will be given by Pope Francis. And we hope we'll begin in the church, then we can open up to other churches, why not even to other religions? So we reach that critical mass. And I conclude with this. It's a time of a jubilee time for the earth and the poor. And let's allow this image to sink into us. You know, Pope Francis kneeling on the ground. And that's humility, humus. So let's kneel down, kneel on the earth. Get down to Mother Earth. But also kneeling before the poor with reverence and kissing the feet of this poor man or woman, I'm not sure. But then that's the poor. And in all this, when we do that, we are God-like. So that is integral ecological conversion. Conversion to the poor, conversion to Mother Earth, and conversion to God. And our God is a God who became one of us to serve. And I conclude with Pope Francis' own words in Laudato Si on a message of hope. And I should say also working at the Vatican, what's most encouraging is to see so many initiatives. As I'm so happy to join this conference today. So many initiatives are springing up around. And I personally, and I suppose that's the only way you can look at it, God's Holy Spirit is raising people, individuals, groups, communities around the world. And we religious, I think we should be at the forefront of this, responding to the Holy Spirit, supporting, working with these people who want to care for our common hope. So let's conclude with Pope Francis on words. All is not lost. Human beings, while capable of the worst, are also capable. We have been capable of the worst, and like in the past decades. But we can also be people who bring about change. We can rise above ourselves, choosing again what is good and making a new start. The last verse of the book of Revelation. I'll make all things new. So let's begin this Jubilee time to heal the planet, to restore relations with the poor, and to return to the Creator. And I conclude with the words of Sean McDonough. I always quote him that we are the last generation that can really change. If our generation does not act, no other generation can undo this damage. So for all the people who are rising to heal our planet, Laudato Si, may Lord be praised. Thank you very much.
And thank you, Father Josh, for such a stimulating presentation, engaging us, a church, the hierarchy, the religious, the laity, all together to make a difference in this world. You shared a very planned activities from the dicastery, but inviting us to be a part of that. And it's stimulating. We want to do this. And you can see then when we were sharing earlier on about how we're organizing the campaign, the reason is we are looking at the tipping point. We're looking at us as faith-based people to make a difference. So thank you again, Father Josh, for bringing us on board with this message. It's so very, very important. Now I'd like to take you to South Bend, Indiana, United States, where we have Dana Taylor, who will be presenting some interesting information regarding the carbon footprint and some of their sustainability efforts. So again, taking what Father Josh has shared with us and giving some examples of how this is done and can be done by others. She works with the Holy Cross Sisters, but she also works in the International Office for the Family of the Holy Cross Sisters, Brothers, and Priests. She has a special interest in international studies and systematic change and sustainability efforts. So I think with this, Dana, I would like you to take this opportunity to share what's been happening with your sisters and their involvements around the world. Please, thank you, Dana.
Thank you very much. It's a great pleasure to be with you today. And I thank you for this opportunity to participate in this very inspiring exchange. Today, it's my honor to share with you the connection of the Sisters of the Holy Cross's long-standing commitment to the care for creation, as well as to highlight some of the key ways in which the Sisters of the Holy Cross are responding to the cry of the earth and the cry of the poor around the world in a spirit of integral ecology. The Sisters of the Holy Cross is an international congregation comprising more than 400 candidates and novices. Presently, our sisters live and serve in 8 countries which are profoundly affected by climate change and environmental degradation: Bangladesh, Brazil, Ghana, India, Mexico, Peru, Uganda, and the United States. Our ministries respond to health and education needs, unjust social, political, and economic systems, and issues such as violence, human trafficking, and environmental degradation. The sisters have long embraced the importance of working for sustainable development and environmental and systemic justice. The congregation's commitment is evidenced in many of its chapter direction statements over the decades. And as early as 1994, the sisters recognized the call to move toward communion with one another and all creation. And on Earth Day 2002, the congregation endorsed the Earth Charter, which can be seen as an early articulation of integral ecology, and the recognition that the global challenges we face cannot be solved in isolation, but must be examined and addressed holistically. In the last 20 years, and very much in harmony with the tenets of Laudato Si and the spirit of integral ecology, the congregation has further articulated these calls in terms of commitment to ecological sustainability and systemic change, recognizing that human dignity, creation, peace, and nonviolence are inextricably linked. That is, we recognize that the common good and integral human development require multidimensional, interconnected perspectives and approaches. Over the last years, the congregation has also taken several public positions on environmental degradation through its corporate stands. As such, the sisters oppose all actions and policies that legitimate degradation and destruction of natural resources and ecosystems, and which incentivize environmental destruction, destabilize economies, and reduce resources for social services. And the sisters oppose economic practices that create conditions that increase human vulnerability and enable human trafficking to flourish, such as the destruction of the environment, which destroys sources of income and contributes to forced migration. So again, you see that there's this recognition of the interconnectedness of all these issues. In 2009, then, the congregation co-signed the Family Statement on Climate Change. This public declaration commits the 4 congregations of Holy Cross to reduce energy consumption, increase efficiency, and employ renewable technologies to achieve carbon neutrality in their congregations by 2050, and to ensure that ecological sustainability is integral to congregational planning, decision-making, and practices. The four councils of Holy Cross reaffirmed their commitment to this statement in October of 2019. Organizationally, the Congregation Sisters of the Holy Cross works in partnership with international NGOs on many of these issues, engaging in socially responsible investments and impact investing. The focus of this presentation, however, is really to explore some of the more concrete and grassroots projects that the sisters have undertaken. The Carbon Footprint Reduction Fund, established by the General Administration in May 2014, has been a major initiative to this end. The fund process serves as both a way to monitor the congregation's annual travel emissions at the general level, to reallocate related offset dollars to promote renewable energy, reforestation, and energy efficiency projects wherever sisters live and serve, as well as in our sponsored ministries. In terms of funding, each year the General Administration allocates $10,000 US to the fund, as well as $15 US per metric ton of carbon that is emitted due to travel at the general level. So that would include travel by general administration, members of congregational committees, and congregation staff. External donations are also accepted now through the Development Office. Each spring, sisters may apply to the Congregation Justice Office for grants that support projects which increase energy efficiency and decrease dependence on fossil fuels and/or deforestation in local communities and sponsored ministries. These applications are submitted to and processed by the Congregation Justice Office, and then that's reviewed by a committee to ensure that they meet the necessary criteria. Finally, those recommendations are submitted to our general administration for consideration and final approval. We prioritize those projects with the greatest impacts. For example, we're interested in impacts such as carbon emissions, carbon reductions, but we're also really interested in educational opportunities, improvements in general and community well-being, positive economic impacts, and of course, added health benefits. The first grants were awarded for the grant year 2015, and since that time, 40 projects have been funded in 6 countries with awards totaling almost $74,000 US. Include solar installations in schools, solar-powered lighting and refrigerating in health centers, and several tree planting projects. Now, many of these tree planting projects have provided much needed protection against soil erosion, while others have added creative benefits, such as providing fresh fruits for convents and schools, as well as creating outdoor spaces for communal gatherings. Most recently, the sisters have also begun seeking opportunities for solar water pumps, simultaneously introducing clean water in local regions while eliminating the need for fuel-based pumps. On one of our first solar projects, Sister Kanika is our co-picture here with her students, full funding, $5,000 US for a solar installation project that provided service to both the Moreau Holy Cross School and the convent in Badun, Bangladesh. At the end of the project, Sister also educated her 6th grade students extensively on how solar energy works, what equipment is necessary, and why. Most importantly, perhaps, the students were taught how renewable energy use reduces reliance on fossil fuels and decreases the greenhouse gas emissions that contribute to climate change. We believe that education about sustainable development is a critical component of our projects, especially in places most vulnerable to the consequences of climate change, where women and children suffer disproportionately. Unfortunately, the pressure to develop is also often accompanied by the displacement of traditional cultural values in favor of individualistic consumerism, which is typically associated with high status. This is incredibly problematic. We need to foster development, certainly, but it must be authentic, integral human development, which causes no harm to present or future generations, and which celebrates the richness of our diverse cultures and values. In continuing the Carbon Footprint Reduction Fund, the congregation not only actively cares for creation, but it also contributes to distributive justice by redistributing and sharing resources where they can do the most good. That is, we calculate the environmental cost of travel, and we use those funds to reduce greenhouse gas emissions around the world. We're also creating and sustaining local economic markets for renewable energy in the places we live and serve. In essence, we are creating the cultural, political, and financial will to develop in a manner that harms none, least of all creation. We are also inspiring young hearts and minds. We are, in fact, helping to bring a new story and a new world into being. In Laudato Si, Pope Francis tells us that if we want to bring this new world into being, we must transform ourselves and our institution. One example of ecological conversion comes to us from our sisters in North America. In the area of North America, it's widespread and it's very large. So sisters very much value face-to-face communication with one another. In 2019, however, they intentionally sacrificed this in an effort to significantly reduce their carbon impact by live streaming the assembly at 2 principal locations, rather than having all North American sisters gather at the Mother House. In this pilot case, the impact of travel for 2019 versus that of the 2016 meeting was measured to determine if this new style of meeting would be a viable option for the future. And as you can see, this change in meeting style actually decreased carbon emissions by 51%. Another example comes from our sisters in Ghana. The Plastic Waste Management Project by the Sisters of Holy Cross Justice Committee Ghana began in 2017 as a means of addressing the immense plastic pollution problem in the region. Plastics have had significant negative impacts on the environment and public health in Ghana, where plastic clogged waterways lead to terrible flooding with just a little bit of rain. Through this grassroots project, which started with some support from the Congregation Justice Office, plastics are collected, sorted, and sent to the recycling centers for processing. Engaging local people in the cleanup of these discarded plastics, more than 15,000 pounds have been collected since 2017. And then part of the revenues from selling these materials to the local recycling processors are then used to provide income and jobs to those local people helping with the collection. Today, blessed with support from partners that have helped advance this ministry, including Loyola Foundation, Dodd's Family Charitable Foundation, and Linehan Family Foundation, this project now boasts a storage facility and vehicles, pictured here. This program also seeks to expand to 2 neighboring dioceses by 2021, tripling the plastic waste collected while boosting local incomes. So as we look to the future, plans are underway for further collaboration between the Justice Offices and our Office of Development for the congregation, focusing on developing partnerships with ministries and associates throughout the greater family of Holy Cross, exploring metrics for sustainable development, working with external organizations and colleagues to exchange knowledge and best practices, and creating strategic networking and project planning opportunities to maximize our impact around the world. So as I wrap up here, a few slides, some additional renewable energy and reforestation projects that might be of interest. These projects were made possible through the generosity of grants and the hard work of our Sisters in Development staff. Pictured here is the 2019 solar installation project at Moreau Nursery and Primary School Girls Dormitory in Karinda, Uganda. Funded by a grant from the Conrad Hilton Fund for Sisters, this solar project provides enough energy to power the dorms, eliminating dependence on the power grid. Also through the generosity of the Conrad Hilton Fund for Sisters, the Kiambogo Holy Cross Health Center in Karinda, Uganda, will receive a complete conversion to solar power in 2020. In addition to the environmental benefits of this, the reliability of solar power also improves the quality of care by ensuring diagnostic equipment can run without fear of a failing power grid, a very real problem. And funded by a grant from the Donald D. Lynch Family Foundation, Our Lady of Holy Cross School in Barakanthal, India, will also receive a complete conversion to solar power in 2020. This will certainly improve the quality of education delivered to the primary and secondary students, while significantly reducing the ministry's carbon footprint. And finally, in 2019, the NiSource Charitable Foundation funded the purchase of 9 native trees, which were planted on the congregation's 275-acre Mother House grounds in Notre Dame, Indiana. This project replaces precious trees that have been lost to disease. If you have any questions about these projects, anything that I've shared today, or if you feel like you can partner with us, please feel free to reach out to me via email. Again, I want to thank you all for this opportunity and for your attention and commitment to this most important work. My prayer is that we go forward together, we retain this wisdom from Laudato Si. May our struggles and our concern for this planet never take away the joy of our hope. God, who calls us to give him our all, offers us the light and the strength needed to continue on our way. And his love constantly impels us to find new ways forward. Praise be to him. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Dana, for so energetically sharing the testimonies of the Sisters of the Holy Cross, giving many, many suggestions for others to replicate if they so choose, giving your contact information. Really, you have integrated in many ways the cry of the earth, the cry of the poor, the North and the South, and the different institutions of your congregations. So thank you very much for that stimulating and encouraging session with us. Our next speaker is coming from Windsor, England. Her name is Laura Nyker King. She is working with the Global Catholic Climate Movement, the organization that has been mentioned a few times here. She partners with the dicastery and other institutional organizations and technical partners to really help bring together a sustainable effort that's going to be launched by the Global Catholic Climate Movement, our collaborator too with this Sowing Hope for the Planet. She has had 10 years experience already as a corporate responsibility officer in an international hotel chain. So Laura will be able to give us even more specifics, but also insights into what will now be launched by the Global Catholic Climate Movement in an effort to really reduce the carbon footprint and to promote our sustainable efforts. So Laura, please share with us your message.
Thanks so much, Sister Sheila. Hello to everybody. I just wanted to wave and say hello from not very sunny England as usual. I will turn my camera off though, because I think you'll be able to hear me better as I present because of my internet line. But just so you know, I am a real person and I am here behind the microphone. So I'm going to go ahead now and share my screen so you can see my slides. So what I want to talk about today is, I think, building on what everybody has said before, we know that there is this really urgent need. We've just heard about some, I think, very inspiring, tangible programs by Dana. It was great to hear about those. I am also going to talk more on the practical side. So how we move from belief and being motivated in this space to action and developing some concrete tools. Just check the chat. Can everybody hear me okay? I think we're good. So moving to the first slide, to set the context, what my work involves. So I work as a sustainability director for the Global Catholic Climate Movement. My work is really about how we harness our size and scale and look inwards to make a tangible difference. So, and we've talked about some of this already. As a Catholic community, we have a huge opportunity and responsibility to actually make a difference, to practically reduce our own impacts. Because we are a lot of people, we are a large amount of land, and we are a lot of different institutions which use energy in different ways. And those are the areas where we feel we can make a real difference. So we have been focused on what are the practical tools and resources that we can create to support activating in those areas. And of course, as mentioned before by Sister Sheila and by Father Josh, we work very collaboratively. So the tools that we develop are developed in collaboration and in partnership. GCCM is a member organisation, so that is the spirit of how we work. It is working in collaboration all the time. So the programme that I will talk about specifically is one where we're really co-partnering with the dicastery and with the UISG. So to give a quick overview of the programme stages, what we have been doing over the last few months is actually, as a really important starting point for us, was understanding programs already in place with other Catholic organisations. And that's for two reasons, because we know not only can we learn from what others are doing very successfully, but also that we need to make sure as we build new resources and new tools that we don't duplicate, because that's not a good use of resources for any of us. So we want to see the areas where we can add value. So what we have been doing is having deeper conversations with institutional partners, such as UISG, the Federation of Catholic Universities, for example, obviously with the dicastery, but deeper conversations to understand what's already taking place and where we can add the most value with new tools and resources. And that's really helped us to define opportunities and see where those gaps are. And what we will talk about in a bit more detail is we see the opportunity around launching what we're calling a Laudato Si action platform, which is an online tool which can be a place, a hub for Catholic institutions, big and small, wherever they may be in the world, but for institutions and individuals to come and take action on Laudato Si, have it recorded and have a space to share. I think Peter earlier put in the chat about wouldn't it be great to have a space where we could input carbon and carbon savings, and that's the kind of thing that we are trying to create. And we have a goal to launch a new tool by May, even if it's in pilot form, but that's for the anniversary of Laudato Si, the 5th year. So that's what we're working towards. So part of our work, as I said, has been to really talk to our stakeholders and understand if we are to build out new tools and resources, where we could add most value. And we got lots of very rich learning. These slides will be shared afterwards, so I won't go through all these points, but to provide a couple of highlights. Our stakeholders, we know, are diverse and have often very different starting points. So for some, they are at the start of their sustainability journeys, and for others, they're more advanced and have opportunities to make bigger changes. We also know that there is a need for an area for, as we touched on earlier, this carbon inputting and collection and a data piece. So tools where you can understand your impacts and record your reductions. And we don't have a viewpoint for that globally in the Catholic space. I'm just going to check my chats. Can everybody hear me okay? Good, just making sure you can. Where everybody can have a place where we can get a global viewpoint on carbon reduction. We learnt also that finance is often for institutions a big barrier. So there is an opportunity to be creative. And I think Dano just gave a great example of how that they have created a carbon fund. So that's one way of doing it. We also want to explore things, if we have this hub, explore things like joint procurement, clusters and in diocese level or amongst schools, where we can actually harness our size and scale to find even greater financial value in sustainability initiatives. So that's just a taster of some of the research and what it told us. So what that means is we are right now focused on 2 key strands. So the first one is where GCCM, as our organisation, we will continue to lead very tactical and practical sustainability initiatives, which we make available for all of our Catholic friends to access, where we on our website and through our webinars and through our animator program, we have practical tools and resources and guides to help people with the now, how we can activate now on sustainability. And we talked before about the need for urgency and to be doing something now, whilst at the same time, the second strand is the development of this Laudato Si action platform, which I mentioned earlier, which is a partner developed program with UISG, the Dicastery for Integral Human Development, and other technical partners. And this is something which just requires a bit more planning, but our vision for it is for it to be that online platform to support institutions to take access. And it's not just an environmental tool. It's called the Laudato Si action platform very deliberately because we want it to be holistic and to help us really address, as we talked about previously, the complexity of social, environmental, and community needs that are outlined so articulately in the Pope's encyclical. So at a high level, what the platform will include, or the key features, something that's really, really important is, and Sister Sheila touched on this when she talked about the different constellations and different priorities in different areas, we want to develop a program which brings us together globally, but allows us to activate and connect in at a very local level. And that's important because, as we know, some of the different issues, they're so pertinent, they have different importance in different locations. So we want something that is both broad but deep for the local level as well. We know from talking to lots of members of our community that people see a lot of value in having a practical forum where they can share ideas, challenges, solutions. So there'll be an area in the platform which facilitates people talking to each other. Of course, we've talked about the key impacts, so that measurement component. People often say what gets measured gets managed, and I think there's a lot of value in that as a statement. So understanding our impacts and being able to measure and see the difference that we're making is something that really motivates people in this space as they go along. And I've talked about already the integration of the social and the environmental aspects. So this just gives a little more detail around the features. What I would say is, whilst we're in the development stage, this is what we envisage to be key features in the programme. So the access to financial advice, downloadable resources, access to information about eco-spirituality, movement building and advocacy. It's all very holistic and all contributes to the movement in this area. We will be looking for lots of feedback. So this is how we envisage things at the moment, but this process will be very stakeholder-led. So moving to my last slide, one point that I want to just rest on a moment is the collaborative and the partnership working. This will be a new resource which will be built for and with you. And that's really, really important, because we don't want to build new tools and resources in isolation. We want to definitely revisit what we know exists already and where we think there is a value add, but test it with people who would eventually use any new platform to really make sure it's of practical value. So it will not replace tools and programs. We don't intend it to replace what's already there. We intend it to really complement and dovetail. So for example, we would be looking to build a bank of fantastic resources into the platform. This is where it's perfect to talk to Dana about some of the resources she has, and to Sister Sheila and the resources on the Sowing Hope website, and see where we can integrate things and actually help lift each other up and boost access and use of all our resources. An important part of the project will be piloting the platform. So it will be a test and learn approach. So I envisage we will pick out those key features and, as I mentioned, test and learn with some key stakeholders. So I think a really good approach that makes sense. And all the time, really trying to hold true to our learning, that we know our stakeholders are diverse and that people have different needs and different starting points. And we want this to be a new resource which can help people at the very start of their journey and then help support people who are much further along get to those kind of bolder aspirations. So, as I mentioned, definitely a platform for everyone, built with everyone. And therefore, it just leaves me to say, if you have any feedback or questions or think that you can add value, or if there's anything you want to tell me from my learning, please, you are always welcome to contact me directly. And Sister and Sheila and I remain close on this project and talk about it often. So also I will be providing key updates through your communication channels, working with Sister Sheila also. So I'll pause there and hand back to the host.
Thank you, Laura, for a very stimulating presentation about where you see GCCM going, the attentiveness that you're giving to those who are initiating some of these programs and those who have been with it for a while, just the comprehensive planning that's in place, you know, over the years, but we'll begin to see something in place by May. This is a campaign, so it's something that has a lot of energy, but it has to fold into something bigger than itself. And so that's why we continue to talk with one another, because we know sustainability is a project for years. So it's important that we find ways to work together. And as you can see, that certainly is happening. So thank you again for the work that you've done so far, Laura. It's really, really impressive. God bless you for that. And on the Sowing Hope for the Planet website, we do have a link that's really to GCCM offerings. So we try to keep updated so that you can know what events, what programs are taking place, and then also be involved in them as well. So we have some time here for some questions or comments. It's kind of an open forum. So it's your opportunity to give your voice. So you can put something in the chat or some way, but I'm sure our technicians here will find a way to let us know what's being asked. As you have just seen, this is the extent of our outside audience. We had over 328 or so that were registered as of yesterday. So, and we know people are in groups. So this is a learning process as we go. So whatever you have to contribute is welcomed. There are going to be some comments that are going to be referred. So your input is welcomed at whatever way it is.
We have some comments and some questions. One question is, is there a plan to promote the 7-year plan to dioceses? A lot of people are thanking for the preparation.
Would you like Father Josh to kind of answer that question?
Just two others, sorry. There are comments and questions together. One idea, would it be good if the Vatican Dicastery opened an account where we can put our savings on carbon footprint? The last one for now, how about collaborating across congregations to pool such things as carbon-free and outwards from it.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for so many comments and feedback. And even if we are not able to reply to all these, be assured that we will go through them and get back to you. To respond to the questions that were raised directly. The way we are planning is we are still over a year we have been working on these proposals, and sometime in the second half of February we are going to have a press conference at the Vatican announcing these projects and inviting dioceses or schools or religious orders or universities, parishes and business who would like to join this. So dioceses are most welcome, and we will reach out. Then we will ask them, say, give them a month or so during which they can express their willingness to join us. Then we will contact them, and we will guide you. And that's also what Laura mentioned with the GCCM. We are working out some criteria, measurable, quantifiable metrics, all that. So we will work with you. Be assured of that. And whoever would like to join, schools or parishes, dioceses, anyone, families, and we are going to begin with families. So everyone will be welcome. The second question was about the what is saved in this, through avoiding carbon. It's a very, very welcome thing. And that's being church. We can show that's again north and south. Now, already when we do this journey, it is a church or diocese or a province, since we are religious, in the northern hemisphere, helping. And it's not just money aspect. It could be that diocese in Bangladesh could be helping the diocese in Amsterdam in terms of technical expertise or the local wisdom. So it's sort of really sharing our resources, of which finance is part of it. I think it's a beautiful idea to pull together whatever is saved, and that again goes back to the program to help maybe a school in a poor country or in a poor region or a parish. So thank you. We have been thinking of it, but we are very encouraged by what you said. And yeah, and the third thing I would like to say is, it was also raised, there'll be a platform. In fact, with the GCCM, the idea is to work to create a platform where all can have access, and we will bring in experience so we can learn from one another, which Laura mentioned. We don't need to dissipate our energy. So a school in Colombia has done it, and they've done so well, and they can share it with the rest of the Catholic Church or with the world. So the platform is going to be crucial. And yeah, and as years go by, let's hope that thousands and thousands of people will join. Yeah, I hope I've replied to. Yeah, thank you.
What is really very important is the fact that we're really trying to work together and not to duplicate, but to make a strong bonding between the various parts of our Catholic Church and all of the ways that we reach out ecumenically and interreligiously. It's important. Question was related also about congregations, and that's why we were using the constellations as an organized way to look at how the different groups can be involved in areas together. Now this, we don't know exactly, we haven't put a particular time on it, but we will be handing out emails to the different constellations, asking where are they with the commitments that they have made for themselves. And in many of these places, they are also working with our priest brothers as well. But it's a way of kind of having a progress report, because it was expected that in the next plenary, there would be the evaluation report of the work that they have done in the different areas. So let's do something in between that piece. So we are encouraging in many ways how to work together. Use the website as we have mentioned, because we are trying to share that information. And as we go forward, any questions, comments on the Sowing Hope for the Planet are welcome. I am the chair of that effort, and it's a very stimulating work for you that we are doing. The next, did you want to say something more?
Yeah. Just one more point I would like to make. Now, it's important to remember that it's a gradual journey. So the 2020, some province, some religious orders who are already into it, like Sister Dan was sharing, they can begin. And 2021 will be another group. And I invite religious orders, especially the general councils, to have a 7-year or 10-year plan by which the entire religious order, all the provinces, all the schools in 10 years become totally, so that'd be huge. And that's what we need to work towards. And some time ago, when we were talking with the World Council of Churches, we're just reflecting, beginning this journey, and at one stage, we will also walk with them. So maybe the last group by 2027, we hope by that time, all the provinces, all our schools have joined IGAD. And which would mean the last group will finish their 7-year journey in 2033. I'm sure whether you're guessing where I'm trying to arrive. 2033 will be the great jubilee of redemption. Like in 2000, it was the great jubilee of the incarnation. And imagine by the great jubilee time, the world has become sustainable, our churches have become, and not just the Catholic, all the churches. So the biblical verse with which I concluded my presentation, Christ will make all things new. So in the meantime, we would have responded to the cry of the poor, especially of our children. So what an ambitious, what a hopeful journey awaiting us, the Jubilee time. So by 2033, the entire church really being renewed to welcome the Lord. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you again, Father Josh. It is already time for us to try to bring this session to kind of a conclusion. Just a reminder that on April the 7th will be the next webinar. It's going to be the continued evolution of sustainable efforts. So we'll be looking at our brothers and sisters in the Africa continent, again, more specifically, Latin America. So we try to go to the different areas of our globe to see how we're interconnected. So we're visiting their work and bringing it alive here with webinars. And we want to thank our partners where we continue to have updates. As you can see, UISG, the Global Catholic Climate Movement, our own office, our Justice and Peace office for both unions, and then our collaboration with the dicastery. I would like to thank then Father Pix for beginning the session with a very, very moving prayer, putting us in a very receptive place. For Father Josh, as he brought us again with the theological, ethical issues, the spiritual base, and moved us forward with the 2020 plans coming from the dicastery, but engaging all of us. Moving to Indiana, where Dana started to begin some with practical ways that congregations can work together within themselves and the connections that they have in their ministries to begin to make a difference and to integrate listening to the cry of the earth and the cry of the poor. And then with Laura coming from Windsor to say what Global Catholic Climate Movement is doing with the tremendous connections that that organization has and lends to this campaign. Thank you for all of the interpreters for the 5 languages going on at the same time throughout the whole world, the technician people, UISG lending their space as well as their support. So God bless you all. And we can say bon pranza, bon cena, or bon desayuno in the words of Pope Francis. Thank you very much. God bless.